Hello, and welcome to another amazing episode of The Amanda Show. I am your host, Amanda Kalono, and on this show, just in case you're just joining us for the first time, we discuss geopolitics from an African perspective. We look at happenings around the world and we find Africa's place in it. In this episode, we're going to be getting into four conversations. Yes, I know we usually cover three, right? But there was a lot of happenings that I wanted to touch certain things that took place. So the first thing that we'll be discussing is the biggest news this week, and that is the ceasefire agreement between Israel Hamas, which has been mediated by United States under Donald Trump and the Qatar and some other players. We'll be discussing that because finally it looks like Israel will have to leave the Philadelphia corridor. Now, some months ago, I discussed that Israel said it was never going to leave the Philadelphia corridor. And in case you don't know, the Philadelphia corridor is border between Gaza and Egypt. Now, this corridor, Israel said is, I'm paraphrasing now, Benjamin Netanyahu said it's important for Israel's existence for Israel to take control of that corridor. And when it took control of the corridor back in May, it said it was never going to leave the place. Well, it seems that under this peace agreement that has just been signed, Israel will have to leave the Philadelphia corridor. But there are some things I want to discuss about the entire situation, and we'll delve into that in this episode. Then from there, something very interesting is going on, and I'm really excited about this one. So last night, in fact, I saw it this morning when I woke up before I started shooting this video. Last night, the Foreign Ministry of Brazil announced that Nigeria has become a BRICS partner, and I'm so excited. I'm so excited because it looks as if Tinubu, that's the president of Nigeria, just decided to tie himself to the West. So even if the Western ship is sinking, he says Nigeria will go down with that ship. But he has made a very good decision with accepting BRICS membership, and I want to discuss that. Then from that instance in Nigeria, we'll move over to Togo. I know we don't talk about Togo a lot of times on this show, but the foreign minister of Togo has just indicated that Togo is willing to join the AES, that is the Alliance of Sahel States. It's a grouping between Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger. So Togo is saying, oh, there's a very likelihood that we're going to join this Alliance of Sahel States grouping. And I want us to discuss that because, sometimes, yeah, when we see things, particularly we that follow politics, when we see things that are happening, we think it's just us that are aware of it. But we don't understand how much a certain thing is reverberating across the continent. And the Alliance of Sahel States is one of such things. So we'll discuss that. And the fourth topic we are going to delve into is not a news story per se, but it is about Patrice Lumumba, the very first prime minister of Democratic Republic of Congo, who was assassinated by his United States CIA-backed operation in at 65 years now. So yesterday, I'm recording this on the 18th of January. Yesterday, 17th of January, marked the 64th anniversary of his gruesome killing. So I want to discuss that from the standpoint of where Africa is today and this move that we are making to bring Africa, completely liberate Africa, has its risks. I want us to discuss that in this episode of The Amanda Show. As always, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to this channel, and share this video with everyone around you so that we can amplify African stories and African voices on the global scale. And also, it lets YouTube know that you like what I'm doing here, and that way YouTube is going to push this video to more people. That way we can grow this channel. And if you want to support the work that I'm doing here, feel free to use the Buy Me a Coffee link in the description, and it's also on the screen. Now, usually at this point, I delve into the stories for the day. But before we delve into the stories, I have a very big news. So after several weeks of work and of building, I am so excited to announce that our Africa Media Movement website is now live. So I have titled it Ukweli. Ukweli is a Swahili word for truth. Now I chose this name Ukweli because Africa has been painted for several decades, maybe even centuries, in a very wrong light. And so this painting that Africans have seen of itself in external media, we have used it as a mirror. And how a mirror works is the more you look at something, the more you think you are that thing. And the more you think you are that thing, you begin to act out like that. So I believe that one of the reasons Africa finds itself where it is today is because we have had a really bad rap, digital media wise, with the media institutions around the world. And that rap has not been the truth. So at this point, Africa needs the truth of Africa's place in the world, the truth of Africa's place in geopolitics, the truth of Africa's place for itself and its citizens. So that's the reason why I chose the name Ukweli. I'm going to leave a link to the website in the description, and I'm also going to put it on the screen. Now, this particular, like I mentioned some weeks ago that I was having serious hiccups setting up the website. So this is just so it's just something I put together. Let us just get started, right? So that we don't have any excuse for moving or not moving and say, oh, the reason why we haven't started is because we do not have the website ready. So I just set up this. So this is not going to be the final website. It's just what we are going to use in the meantime until I have every other logistics covered. So how it's going to work is with Ukweli, the point of Ukweli is for Africans to take control of the narrative, to tell the real African story, and to also shine light of Africa's place in the world. That way, Africans can become aware of its geopolitical and its economic interests. So you visit the website, you can see it's just a one-page website where you will sign up. If you want to join me in this African media movement with Ukweli, I want you to decide, what are you going to do? Are you going to do YouTube videos like I am doing? Are you going to run a podcast? Do you want to run a website like a news website? Or do you want to use social media to push the news stories from Africans' perspective? That is what I want you to decide. Once you decide, you visit the website and you sign up. Now, the website just helps us capture your our details, because in the future, hopefully in a few months from now, I want us to begin to have training. So we're going to train ourselves with media, how media works, how to use media, and the best practices of media, and even how to grow our respective media outlets. That is what we are going to do. But for now, there are a lot of logistics to cover that, and it's not something I can do at the moment. But what I want us to do is to begin to gather ourselves together. So once you sign up on the website, you're going to be directed to, after signing up and submitting your information, you're going to be directed to the our Telegram channel. I want us to use Telegram and some other social media platforms to broadcast news. So what is going to happen is, every day I'm going to try as much as possible to send news stories to the Telegram channel. So look at it like African news platform, right? So I'm going to try as much as possible to send news stories to the Telegram channel. And you can then choose from those stories that are sent every day, every week. You can then choose the stories you want to cover on your own platform. So you don't have to run around looking for where to find news. I will give you the news. Then you decide how you cover the news by yourself. That way we can, we can build momentum for this thing and stay at this thing. So if you want to join me, the link is in the description and it's also on the screen. Now you might be thinking, why is Ukweli important? Let me tell you of something that just happened a few days ago. I wrote it down here. So a few days ago, the European Union allocated 8.5 million euros to support opposition media and NGOs in Georgia. I don't want to delve into the full details, but you know that Georgia has been at odds with the EU and Washington for a while now, because of Georgia is trying to break away from, according to them, Georgia is trying to break away from their influence. So these people now, the EU wants to bring Georgia back under its control, back under the fold, for Georgia to play nicely. And what is the EU doing? The EU is allocating 8.5 million euros to support opposition media and NGOs in Georgia. And after that, they will also transfer another 7 million euros to the opposition for information campaign and the fight against disinformation. The European Union is going to give extra 7 million euros to opposition in Georgia so that they can fund information campaign and fight against disinformation. Information campaign, disinformation, everything borders to media. So if the EU is looking at media as the most effective way to bring Georgia back under its fold, and that way push, because what they want to do is they want to push the narrative in support of the opposition so that the opposition will come into power in Georgia. If the European Union thinks that media is that important, together to allocate 15.5 million euros for media funding for media in Georgia. That is to tell you how important media is. So we in Africa, we may not have right now, you and me, we may not have this 15.5 million euros, but we have our voices. We have access to the internet. We can see the news and we have each other. That's why I say let us come together to work for the sole purpose of pushing the Africa's interests, pushing Africa's geopolitical and economic interests in the hearts of Africans in this multipolar world. If not, same way they carved us up in the 19th century, they will carve us up again today. So we are going to take a very aggressive stance with media for the purpose of Africa. So please, if you're interested, and it's not just coming in and say, okay, I'm here. I want you, as you're signing up, to decide in your heart to be consistent, because doing one video is not enough. I've been doing this thing every week since June of 2024. Every week, under rain, under sun, when I'm feeling fine, when I'm not feeling. Several times I have shot this. I've done this show. I was having serious headache. Several other times I was shooting because I shoot outside because of the access to the lightning. Several times, maybe you probably see some of my initial videos. I've shot videos under scorching sun. I've shot videos with the rain drizzling. So I'm telling you because I have seen that what I'm doing is important. Right now, we may not be like a million subscribers. The last time I checked, we were like 900 and something, and that's amazing. That's what we have done. So even at sometimes the videos get a few thousand. Sometimes, many times, the video stays at a couple of 50, a couple of tens, maybe like 20, 50. Some other times it gets to 100. But I'm saying that in spite of these things, because these are some things that people may look at and they're discouraged, but in spite of these things, I come out every week to do this video because Africa is important. So you, when you're coming up to sign up on the website, decide in your heart to be consistent with this thing. Don't just do it once and leave it, or do it 3 times and leave it, or do this week, then don't do for the next month. Then after the next month, you do. No, we are going to be very consistent. Whether it's shooting your video, whether it's doing audio recordings, whether you're doing graphics, doing infographics to tell the African story, whether you're writing, whether or using social media, whatever it is you are doing, we're going to be consistent. Let's quickly jump into this video. So use the link in the description and it's also on the screen. Now let's get into today's video. Since October 2023, it appears that the carnage and the destruction of Gaza may be coming to an end. I'm saying may because so far in this 15 months of this destruction campaign or destructive campaign, we have seen, we can tell the players and where they stand, right? So right now, the Donald Trump has been able to secure a ceasefire agreement between Israel and Hamas. But if we know what has been going on, right? Because there have been several times that a ceasefire has been agreed in Lebanon, but Netanyahu and his government went around to break that. So we hope that this ceasefire stays. But let's not forget that there is a possibility that the way Netanyahu and his government have been breaking other ceasefire agreements, they might break this one. But there has been no ceasefire agreement between Hamas and Israel up until now, and Donald Trump did it. Now, this ceasefire agreement is in 3 phases, if I'm not, it's in several phases. Now, the first phase is going to see the release of prisoners, hostages. It's going to see the release of hostages both from Israel and also from the Hamas side. And then it's also going to last, is it 45 days? It's going to last 45 days. But the main thing I want to discuss, which is from Africa's perspective, is that of the Philadelphia corridor. Now, back in the 1970s, when we had the Camp David Accords between Israel and Egypt, where Egypt said we're going to recognize and have relationships with the state of Israel, when we got the Camp David Accords, one of the things that had to happen was Israel had to let go of the Philadelphia corridor, right? It let go of that as a goodwill gesture because Egypt is in control of that border, the border between Gaza and Egypt. But the funny thing happened. Once this whole thing broke out, this recent destruction of Gaza broke out, Netanyahu, back in April, they took control of the Philadelphia corridor. I discussed it on this show. Now, when they took control of the Philadelphia corridor, Netanyahu said, and I'm paraphrasing, that Israel needs it for its protection, for its security guarantees, because weapons flow from there into Gaza for Hamas, and Hamas continues to wreak havoc and destruction of Israel, all of that. So Israel took control of this corridor, and it said it was never going to let it go. Now, we've been seeing up until now that there's been so-called negotiations between the Biden administration, Anthony Blinken, Israel, Qatar, and all of this to bring about a ceasefire, but nothing happened until now. So apparently, Donald Trump sent his Middle East envoy, is it Steve Witkoff? Yeah, I think that's his name. Sent him to broker a peace, and he brokered the peace. I don't want to get into the details, but you can read the details. I saw the details about it in Harris. Harris is an Israeli publication, so you can see the details about it then. Well, the funny thing is, when this whole negotiations was going on, Egypt specifically put in this ceasefire that has just been signed, now this ceasefire agreement, specifically put in it that Israel would have to leave the Philadelphia corridor. Now that is where it comes to in the second part of the ceasefire agreement. That is when Israel will begin to remove its troops from certain areas of Gaza, including this Philadelphia corridor. The funny thing is, before I get into another thing I want to mention, the funny thing is, now a lot of people have been saying, what did Donald Trump give Israel for Netanyahu to say, okay, fine, let's end the war, blah blah blah. I think the most important thing is to say, for the first time in 15 months, the people of Gaza can breathe, because I don't think we yet understand the depth, the the gravity of what Israel has done in Gaza and done to the Palestinians, because it's not just, yeah, most Gaza is receiving the heavy brunt of the force, but we are also seeing Israel do things in the West Bank. People have been saying, oh, they are going to go to war with Trump is going to go to war with Iran to pacify Israel. We are saying they may annex the West Bank, or they may they may have Saudi Arabia recognize the state of Israel and have relationships with Israel and all of that. But whatever may happen, but I'm just saying, for now, the most important thing is that the people of Gaza can breathe. Imagine having this military campaign that has lasted for 15 months, and in this 15 months, the overwhelming number of people killed are children. The number of dead children I have seen in Gaza, I've not seen it before. To the extent that the International Criminal Court is saying that there is a likelihood that what is going on in Gaza is a genocide. That is why South Africa's case, they're hearing it. They said there's a likelihood that what is going on in Gaza is genocide. That is why there's an arrest warrant for Netanyahu and Yoav Gallant. Women are being killed. Old people are being killed. Non-combatants. If you say you're going after military targets or Hamas itself, fine. But have you seen the destruction? The homes that have been razed to the ground. I said that to say this, that this peace that has just been brokered by Donald Trump and his envoy Steve Witkoff is an indictment of Biden. This clearly shows that Biden did not want peace in the Middle East. This shows that Biden was fine with the destruction of Gaza and the complete annihilation of children. Oh, Biden was fine. Now, coming from someone who actually lost a son, Biden lost a child. Coming from, as a parent who has lost a child, he should know the pain. Unless he doesn't think that the Palestinians are equal to him. The people doesn't see them as human beings. After all, we heard officials from Israeli government say that the Palestinians are animals. This is an indictment of Joe Biden and his administration. I saw a report. I can't remember right now the exact publication I saw it in, but the report says that while Anthony Blinken was coming out to say, oh, we are looking for peace in the Middle East, we are trying to get a ceasefire, he was actually sabotaging the agreement. This is as per people who spoke from the Arab states, like Qatar. They said Anthony Blinken was sabotaging the agreements. He will come out to say we are working on peace, but behind closed doors, he was doing everything possible not to want peace. Now my question is why? And I think my answer, I saw it in, was it The Hill Oh my God, there are several public. When you read, no, I think it was political. When you read a lot of things, yeah, sometimes this is one thing I'm trying to work on to remember why I read something so that I can give such reference. But one of these United States media outlets, it stated that people from Israel, officials from Israel, were trying to lure or trying to make Biden approve strikes into Iran. It said back in November, here's how it happened. Back in November, officials from the United States, after Trump won, flew to Mar-a-Lago or flew to the United States to convince Trump to agree that there should be strikes inside Iran. Trump refused. Then Anthony Blinken was now trying to get Joe Biden to do it in the final days of his administration. What is this? How can you come out and tell the whole world that you're looking for peace and you're trying to bring a ceasefire, but going back so that they can strike Iran, effectively making the situation in the Middle East worse? Like, what kind? I think Joe Biden's administration, yeah, there's no way to say it. There's no matter how much you want to be nice and you know say words carefully, there's no way to say it. The Biden administration, to the best of my knowledge, is the most destructive administration of the United States in history. The most destructive. The people who worked hard to ensure the world stayed in a mess, to ensure fire was burning everywhere on the planet, is Biden, Joe Biden, Anthony Blinken, Jake Sullivan, all these people. All these people. Like I said before, the United States could, all the children who died, there was no need. The women who were killed, there was no need. Everything that they've been burning since, all the things all the carnage they've been doing in Gaza, in the West Bank, in Lebanon, is so they can have a war with Iran. That is the reason. It's for war with Iran, which, make no mistake, would have been the Third World War. Make no mistakes, because it will not just be Israel and Iran. Israel cannot face Iran. It will be United States and Iran. And when United States gets in and Iran is fighting, initially maybe Iran will fight on its own, but after a while, it's going to get support from maybe Russia and China. When Russia and China are facing off United States, United States will now bring its NATO people. Before you know what's happening, the whole world will be in a mess. You may think that your country is far. Maybe you somewhere in Africa, your country is really, really far. Oh, you'll be mistaken, because we will still feel the economic because it's a world war. We will feel the economic impact of a world war. This development we are trying to do and help ourselves in Africa, we will put it. I said this before. We will put it on the back seat. Forget development. It's a world war. When it's a world war, everything is destruction. This is what Anthony Blinken was trying to get Joe Biden to do, because Trump refused. At least according to the report, Trump refused. So Anthony Blinken was trying to get Joe Biden to do this thing at the tail end of his administration, days to the end of, or weeks to the end of his administration. When the history books are written, there'll be an indictment of this Biden administration. There'll be an indictment because Trump have just proved, right, before we get into the discussion about what may happen, Trump just proved that at the very least, a ceasefire was possible. United States just didn't want to do it. Biden just didn't want to do it. Anthony Blinken just didn't want to do it. So now, the debates that I'm seeing online is, oh, what is Trump giving? What is Trump giving? I'm going to say, first of all, I want to say that Trump is not a fan. We cannot say that Trump is not a fan of Iran. He's not a fan of the government of Iran. Probably he would likely want to have a regime change operation or something to remove them from power. Trump is not a fan of Hamas, right? But let's not act like this peace agreement is not in United States' interest, because United States up until now has really gotten a bad rap globally on international stage, because every ceasefire agreement every ceasefire discussion that was taking place in the United Nations, United States kept vetoing it. In the UN Security Council, the United States kept vetoing it. They kept vetoing it. So everybody in the world was looking at it like, okay, Israel is committing genocide with the help of the United States. That's how the nations are looking at it. So at least this gives United States, you can manage. Oh, I think the United States has lost it anyway. But you can say, all right, no, 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 we want peace. This, and take like a moral high ground because the United States lost it. Now, having said that, right? I don't think if you say okay, maybe Trump has agreed to go to war with Iran. I don't see if this report. I'm going to look for that report. If this report that I saw in one of these U.S. media outlets is anything to go by, Trump would have given approval for if he wanted to go to war with Iran. Trump would have given approval for strikes into Iran in November when the Israeli um, people went to speak with him, but he refused. So maybe Trump does not really want a war. If it's kinetic war, like hot war, Trump is clearly trying to pull away from it. That's why you're hearing him say the things that he's saying with Russia. In fact, yesterday he made mention, and also the Chinese media reported it, that Donald Trump and Xi Jinping had a phone conversation. So this shows you that the United States, at least Trump, does not want a hot war. So what may he be looking at? Maybe I think he's going to amplify sanctions against Iran. And those sanctions is to make the situation in the country really bad economically, so that it will make to be a fertile ground for the overthrow of the government of Iran. Will it work? I don't know. I don't really think so. Because Iran has been taking on sanctions for how long now? Iran has been taking on sanctions for how long now? It did not overthrow. They didn't see the overthrow of the government. The supreme leader is still very much in power. Right. Iran, another reason why those attacks against Iran may have been very sick, because Iran and Russia just signed a comprehensive agreement which heavily speaks about military. But having said that, so like I said, Donald Trump is going to up economic sanctions against Iran. But I don't think it may be successful because Iran can always see how Russia was able to successfully circumvent the sanctions and nothing happened to Russia's economy. Russia's economy has continued. In the same way, Iran, because Russia found friends and people who were going to trade with it outside of Europe, right? So Iran may, and remember, Iran is a member of the BRICS. So Iran may now decide to focus its trade with the BRICS. So let's see how it goes. I'm not so sure how successful these sanctions will be, but sanctions better than World War Three. Sanctions better than World War Three because World War Three could lead to nuclear war. Because remember, United States is a nuclear force. Israel has nuclear weapons. They may act like, oh no, no, they don't, but they have the nuclear. I think it's called. Is it the Solomon, the something something? In the instance that if Israel sees it is going to face a defeat, Israel will just nuke everything and say, okay, fine. If we don't exist, nobody should exist. It's the something something. I forgot it, but I know something is in it. So if we allow a World War Three take place, and it looks like, oh, Iran is getting the upper hand over Israel, who says Israel may not use nukes? Let's not forget that the people who may be backing Iran in this, hopefully we never see it, in this scenario are Russia, China, that have nuclear weapons. So better sanctions than World War Three and nuclear war. Better sanctions. Another thing that people are saying that Israel could get if it follows through with this whole ceasefire something is Donald Trump get insisting that Saudi Arabia recognizes the state of Israel. I think Donald Trump is also going to follow this policy because it was in his first policy under the Abraham Accords. Now I have an issue with the Abraham Accords because the Abraham Accords was looking for peace and did not want to mention the issue of Palestine. That's the problem I have with the Abraham Accords, right? But better, and I think that Donald Trump is likely going to get it before the end of his four-year term. He's going to have Saudi Arabia is going to recognize the state of Israel. It's going to happen. But what Saudi Arabia is going to demand from that, I don't understand. Because back then, when they had the Abraham Accords and Saudi Arabia would have recognized the state of Israel, that was before this carnage that we have seen in the Middle East. Now that post October 7th and Israel has gone on this mass slaughter that a lot of people are calling a genocide, now that we're in this situation, the population in many of these Arab countries, especially even Saudi Arabia, the population it has reignited their stand against Israel. So I want to see what the Saudis will demand. If, and I think Donald Trump is going to get recognition of Israel from Saudi Arabia, who will get it. But I want to see what the Saudis would demand in return, because they have to pacify their population. They have to pacify their population and say, okay, this recognizing Israel, this thing we are getting from the Americans and Israelis is really worth recognizing Israel. So maybe it's, now I don't know, but I'm thinking, is that going to be the state of Palestine? Maybe Saudi Arabia is going to insist that there is a state, and not all this rhetoric we've been hearing for a very long time. People like Anthony Blinken will come out and say, yeah, 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 we believe in the two-state solution. But at the back door, according to reports, at the back door, they're working to what's the word? They're working to suffocate peace agreements and ceasefire. So I don't know. Maybe let's see what happens. And then the third thing is, because Donald Trump's campaign and his re-entry to the White House, this is Trump 2.0, was very possible with a lot of money from Marian Anderson. Now she is pro-Israel, and she was one of the people that Donald Trump, according to report, Donald Trump moved the American embassy to Jerusalem because she wanted it. She and her husband wanted it, but her husband is dead now. So she has been clamoring for building settlements, for Israel to annex the West Bank and build illegal settlements in the West Bank. That, for that one, I really don't have any say. I don't know how it's going to pan out. But the two that I can speak on is Iran. Trump does not want war with Iran. If he wanted war with Iran, he would have agreed for strikes into Iran back in November. He did not. So Trump's position with Iran is going to be sanctions. The second thing I can speak on, based on the things that I have been saying, is that before the end of Trump's second term, I am 80% sure that Saudi Arabia is going to recognize Israel. The question is, what is Saudi Arabia going to demand from the Americans and the Israelis as a result of that? So while we're all discussing all these things, it seems like Netanyahu's administration is breaking apart, because his coalition partners, Smodrick and Ben Viger and all those people, they are saying no. In fact, when people are saying, because I've seen a lot of people who are saying that, oh, that Trump worked this with Netanyahu so that Netanyahu can give Trump a win. I don't think so. Let me tell you why I don't think so. Because if you follow Israeli media and you see the way these hardliners in Israel are discussing, even the protests that were going on in Israel, it doesn't seem that Netanyahu blessed this ceasefire agreement. He did not want it. I don't think the Netanyahu and his government wanted it. So this is really Trump forcing them to a deal, in my opinion, right? Because if you read Israeli news outlet, you're seeing a lot of Israelis are upset. Smodrick is complaining. Ben Gvir is complaining. Even Netanyahu, before they finally signed the agreement yesterday, yeah, I think it was yesterday, he was even trying to stall and sabotage the whole thing. So these people are not happy about it. It seems like Donald Trump is forcing them to do this. So that's why I don't think it was planned. I may be wrong. I may be very, very wrong. But I don't think it was planned. Even some hardliners in Israel, Netanyahu included, and some other people, some other political commentators in United States, I don't want to mention their names, they are saying, oh, it's just going to be the first part of the agreement that they're going to do. The other parts of the agreement, they're not going to do it. Right? So because these people are looking for war, they like the fact that they're killing children in Gaza. So, well, now the second part of the agreement is where Israel will have to withdraw from the Philadelphia corridor, which is between Gaza and Egypt. They are saying they are not going to do that part. They're only going to do the first part, which is the hostage exchange. Let's see how it goes. But I really hope that this is the beginning of the end of what we have seen in Gaza. Because at the end of the day, while all this politics is playing out, and some people wanting to go to war with Iran, some people wanting to posture as if they're tough, whatever all the situation may be, at the end of the day, it's the people of Gaza that are bearing the brunt. They are the ones who are suffering. And I really hope, I really do hope that this ceasefire agreement lasts. But let me know what you think about it in the comment section below. Will it last? Will it not last? And what do you think with all these people within the Netanyahu administration, his government, they are threatening to leave if this ceasefire agreement is fully enacted? Share your thoughts with me in the comment section below. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to this channel, and share this video with your family, your friends, everybody, so that we can amplify Africa's voice in global conversations. And if you want to support the work that I'm doing here, feel free to use the Buy Me a Coffee link in the description, and it's also on the screen. Last night, I saw this news, and I saw the news broke last night, like my time really last night. So I woke up and I saw this news, and my God, I am so excited. Like, words cannot fully express my joy. What's the news? Nigeria has finally accepted to become a BRICS partner. This is very interesting because the Nigerian government, Tinubu, the president himself, he's pro West, he's pro United States, pro France, and he has taken several steps and several moves that have been to the detriment of Nigeria just to advance the cause of outsiders. But this, in my opinion, I think is the very first time that he is making a decision that I think is to the benefit of Nigeria. So I'm going to give you credit. I don't know, whenever I come here, I'm always dragging Tinubu and saying Tinubu this, Tinubu. But this one, Tinubu, you have done a good job. You've done a good job. And I'm really excited for that. So before now, initially it was under the Buhari administration that Nigeria said, okay, we would like to join BRICS. Back then, I was even having an issue because Nigeria did not fully submit application to join BRICS. It just said, okay, we'd like to join BRICS in the future. And I assumed it was because because Buhari also is pro-West, so it was because they were trying to stay on the Western side. But the fact that that administration voiced its interest in joining BRICS, I thought it was a good thing the Buhari administration did. Now Tinubu came in, and Tinubu did everything to appease Americans and the French. While all these things were going on, I kept wondering, why is he trying to break away, like not really break away, but ignore BRICS? So something happened even back then, when I think it was in August of 2024, when they had the BRICS summit. Nigeria was not there, was not represented. I spoke about it on this show, and I was really upset. I spoke about it on this show. Nigeria did not go. Not one representative from Nigeria from Nigerian government was in Russia for the BRICS summit. Then after the BRICS summit, they said, okay, Nigeria and it's BRICS, because initially Nigeria had said we would like to join BRICS sometime. So Nigeria was one of the countries that BRICS welcomed to be a partner nation, along with Uganda and some other countries. Shortly after that, Uganda said accepted the invitation to become a partner nation. Indonesia accepted to become a member of BRICS. So I was seeing a lot of countries coming in and joining BRICS. Nigeria did not see anything. So then I said, what kind of thing is this? Did Tinubu not realize that they told you to join? Just at the very least, even Saudi Arabia, that is a friend of the United States, is a BRICS member. So why can't you, even if you want to be friends with the United States, fine, no issue with that. But at the very least, accept this partner status of BRICS. Nigeria left it since August. I'm giving you this gist, right? Nigeria left it since August. Then suddenly, this morning I woke up and I saw the news, and I'm so excited. So what do I think happened? I have two theories in mind. Number one, even while the president is pro-West, that is Tinubu is pro-West, I think that there are people within his cabinet that are pro-Russia. I don't want to mention names, but before now, I have heard some people close to him who also played a role in his getting into Asorok. I've heard them say things that are, the kind of things you would hear people say within the multipolar world grouping, right? So I've heard them say things pro-Russia and praising Russia and speaking down on several things the West has done, particularly the United States. And these are people who are close to him. That made me realize that even while he himself, the president himself, is pro West, there are people within his administration and people close to him who clearly have his ear, who are pro Russia. So that is why I'm saying it. So it's more like they convinced him to go this route. That's number one. Number two, which I think is very likely, there's this culture within the Chinese political grouping, within China's politics, that every year China begins its foreign trips coming to Africa. It's always the case. So last week, The foreign minister of China visited several African countries, including Nigeria. And one of the things that China and Nigeria discussed when the foreign minister of China came to Nigeria was they were going to reissue doing currency swaps. That's one of the things they discussed. But I'm now thinking, I've not seen any report about this, but I'm thinking that during that meeting between China and Nigeria, the issue of BRICS came up. Now, while Nigeria and many other African countries can really take such a, I don't want to use the word anti-Russia, but they can really take such a, they can really focus on the West and ignore or overlook Russia, is because Russia is not so ingrained in African politics or Africa's economy. Since we're talking about Nigeria, then Russia is not so invested in Nigeria's economy. So it's not a part, it's not, Russia is not something we think about when we are making policies, whether it's local policy or foreign policy. But that's not the situation with China, right? We can ignore Russia's wishes, but it's not the situation with China. China is ingrained in Nigeria's economy. Without China, I mentioned this in our last episode, many of the developments we've seen in Africa is courtesy of China. So China, the Africans cannot ignore China the way we can ignore Russia because China is ingrained in our economy. And most of our imports are from China. On average, most of our exports is to China. For example, since we're discussing Nigeria, Nigeria's trade with China, if you look at the graph, you will cry. What we import from China, let's say Nigeria runs on China. Do you get? Nigeria runs on China, and then what we export is really doesn't. It's really nothing. But then our strongest, Nigeria's strongest bilateral trade partner is India, also a member of BRICS. Nigeria's strongest bilateral trade partner is India, like bilateral trade, meaning buying and selling, is India. So I think that when Wang Yi, the foreign minister of China, visited Nigeria last week, they didn't, when the respective foreign ministries released statement, they did not mention BRICS. But I think that China spoke to Nigeria about BRICS. And like I said before, Nigeria can ignore Russia, it cannot ignore China. The only thing with Russia with respect to African countries is really security, military. That's it. And military relationship we also have with China, we also have with the United States. So it's not as if Russia is indispensable when it comes to military in Africa. Russia is not. But China, that's a different story. China's economic interest in Nigeria and Nigeria's economic interest tied in association to China, even in the country of Nigeria, is indispensable. We cannot afford to lose relationship with China. It's the same thing if you look towards East Africa. You would notice that several times um, Ruto had said things that are not favorable to Russia. Not like insulted the Russians, no. But he has alluded that whatever Russia is doing in Ukraine is bad, is wrong, blah 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 blah. He has alluded that even when we had the Russia Africa summit, Ruto did not go to Russia, and there was no representative from, to the best of my knowledge, I may be wrong, but there was no representative from Kenya in Russia. But when it comes to China, Ruto is literally on the floor for China. That's because China is ingrained in Africa's economy. So if you want to be indispensable, that's the way to do it. So I think this is the reason why Nigeria suddenly out of nowhere seemed like Nigeria. Because if you had followed Tinubu's policy with respect to BRICS and Russia and all of these things, it's like, oh, I'm going to stay with the United States, even if it's at the detriment of Nigeria in certain regards, right? Even if the Western ship is sinking, we are going to hook ourselves on the Western ship. But this movement has taken place. I think two reasons. Two reasons. Number one reason I mentioned is that there are people within the administration and the people who have the ear of Tinubu who are pro-Russia. But overwhelmingly, I think that the reason we have seen this change is because the foreign minister of China came to Nigeria and had a discussion on BRICS with Nigeria. And Tinubu could not say no because China is ingrained in Nigeria's economy. That's what I think happened. But at the end of the day, even if it's Wang or the Chinese that got Nigeria to make a U-turn, or it's people within the administration that got Tinubu to make a U-turn, at the end of the day, the decision is always upon Tinubu. It's incumbent on him to make the final decision. So I want to say thank you to Bola Ahmed Tinubu. You people know that a lot of times I have had issues with him on this show, but I want to give credit where credit is due. Because for me, the most important thing is the interest of Nigeria and Africa at large. So when we see leaders make the right moves, right, let us, the same way we will castigate them and we will speak bad about them when they make a bad move. Let it be the same way. Let's also use that measuring stick, right, to speak good about them when they make a good move. This move has been made by Tinubu. Whether if the Chinese told him to do something, he could still say he would not have done it. If people within or maybe he would have delayed it. If people within his administration are advising him to do something, he can still decide not to do it. But the fact that Tinubu has done this, I want to give credit to him and say you have done well, Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Thank you for accepting the invitation for Nigeria to become a partner of BRICS. Let me know what you think about all of this in the comment section below. This news has made me so. I saw it this morning and I literally screamed. I'm like, yes, that's the right decision. Tinubu made the right decision. Let me know what you think about it in the comment section below. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to this channel, and share this video with everybody, so that we can amplify Africa's voice on a global scale. And if you want to support the work that I'm doing here, feel free to use the Buy Me a Coffee link in the description, and it's also on the screen. Thank you so much. I always tell you on this show that there's a tectonic shift going on in global affairs. And by the time everything settles down, we will look back at this moment and say this was the moment of the framing of the new international order. What am I saying? Togo, the foreign minister of Togo, just said something that made me go, wait, what? What? I'm hearing something. So the foreign minister of Togo had said that they are open to joining AES, that is the Alliance of the Sahel States, the grouping between Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger. They said they are open to joining it. Although he said at the end of the day, the decision is up to the president and the parliament. But remember that the foreign minister is a part of the government. So I'm suspecting that this conversation is going on within the government of Togo, which is amazing, which is very amazing. And another thing that he said, speaking about Togo joining the AES, another thing that he said is that the population of Togo, that he's sure, I'm paraphrasing now, that he's sure that if you ask the population of Togo, many of them would want to join the AES. That is the Alliance of the Sahel States. And I'm like, whoa. You know, sometimes, yeah, because you follow, I'm not talking about myself now, me and you, because we follow geopolitics closely, right? We tend to think that certain things, we're the only people who are noticing it. It is until you take a step back and you say, wait, it's actually mainstream conversation on the continent. Why did I say it? Like I mentioned now, the government, or let's say some people within the government of Togo, are signaling that it is in Togo's interest to join the AES, the Alliance of the Sahel States, because they have seen, and the AES is not like ECOWAS. No, the AES is, to me, an anti-imperialistic grouping that is focused on national interests, because they have found out that alone they can easily be chopped up. But when they band together, working for the interests of Africa, of their respective countries, right? Working from that interest, they are likely to win this battle against imperialism. That's the concept of the AES. And now we're in a country like Togo. A country like Togo. No, sometimes you may just think, oh, France has a huge grip over these countries. But now you're listening to conversations coming out of these countries looking for sovereignty, not independence now, sovereignty, where they take control of their political, economic, and national interest and prosperity. These people are saying they want to join the AES. That's amazing. And he's like I mentioned, the foreign minister said that if you would ask the people of Togo, they will say they would like to join. So this he's the one who is going to speak for his country, right? So I'm assuming that this conversation about joining the AES is not just within the politics, it's even among wide society. Now that will bring me to the guy whose position he did ask for it, but somehow the youths across Africa have branded him the king of Africa. And that is the president of Burkina Faso, Ibrahim Traore. I'm bringing him up because I'm mentioning how sometimes because you follow politics closely, you think some things you know is not yet mainstream, but it's actually mainstream. He was at the inauguration of John Mahama, the president of Ghana. And at the inauguration, the kind of reception he received, I bet he himself was shocked because going to Ghana, to the best of my knowledge, going to Ghana is his first trip, Ibrahim Traore's first trip outside of the AES states because it's either in Mali or Niger or this, but this is the first time he's leaving the AES states and it's Ghana. I told you guys that John Mahama is more pro is more pro Russia than Akufo-Addo, and he has shown sympathy to Burkina Faso compared to Akufo-Addo. As I said that like several weeks before this inauguration, and at the inauguration, I'm sure you saw how it played out. So anyway, um, Ibrahim Traore was at the inauguration of John Mahama, and the response was deafening. The noise. I'm like, so like the surprise on his face. If I see that video, I hope I find it. But if I find it, I'm sure if I don't find it, sorry.
You can also see how popular Mr. President is in Ghana. When he was introduced at the Black Star Square, he got the biggest applause. Thank you, my brother. Thank you very much. Yes, good.
The surprise, the look on his face was so amazing. He was shocked, and I was shocked. Those thousands of people in that venue, they were all, and most of them young people, they were all clapping, standing ovations, screaming, hailing him. I said that because this, this movement in Africa that Africans are looking for sovereignty, it's not just we who follow politics closely that are aware. It's not just, it's main knowledge across the continent. And Ibrahim Traore did not expect it, but now he has become a symbol of the fight against imperialism. That's what he has become. He's a symbol of the fight against imperialism. The same way on a global stage, Vladimir Putin of Russia has become a symbol of the fight against imperialism. And Putin did not expect that when Russia marched into Ukraine. It's the same way within Africa, Ibrahim Traore has become a symbol of anti-imperialism. He has become a symbol of African sovereignty, breaking away from the shackles of the imperialists. That is what he has become. Because explain to me all that screaming and shouting from African youths in Ghana. I bet if Ibrahim Traore came to Nigeria, he would get the same reception. If he went to Kenya, oh my God, he would get the same reception. Other than him, there was no all the other African leaders that were at the inauguration of John Mahama. None of them got that kind of applause. None of them. None of them got that standing ovation. Because they are, not all, but most of them have become to African youths. They look to us like caretakers for imperialism. And particularly this, they look to us like caretakers of imperialism. But Ibrahim Traore has become the anti-imperialist figure. If ever there was a face of anti-imperialism in Africa, it's Ibrahim Traore. But he did not expect it. So I'm saying that because of this statement of the leadership or the foreign minister of Togo, he said Togo is very open to joining the alliance of Sahel states. And it's not just within, and now I'm adding this part, this is not just within because for him to say it is a conversation they're having within the political circle of Togo. But this is not a situation of just the political circle of Togo. Even the everyday Togolese who are going about their business, they are saying, yes, it would be a nice idea to join the AES. Listen, I think for the first time in maybe in centuries, we could really have African sovereignty at our grasp. We had something the last time. I'll give credit where credit is due to. Those are leaders who I'm going to speak about one of them in a minute, Lumumba. All right. I'll give credit to those our leaders back then. They fought. And yes, they got, I say it was not complete independence, but at least they got something where the Europeans were not coming to sit down here to tell us what to do. And one of the reasons why they were able to secure that, right, was because Europe was weak. After World War II, Europe became nothing. All the European capitals, many of them were bombed. So Europe was built back by the Americans. After World War II, the United States became the overwhelming power and it decided to create a different world. It decided to structure a new global order. And the global order it decided to structure was one of the things that the United States successfully did was, permit my word, was the humiliation of Europe. Because when the US built Europe back, let's not forget, I think was it the Marshall Plan? They had a plan like that. United States built Europe back. It built that continent back. So one of the things they successfully did after building back Europe was Europe became a vassal of the United States. All these European countries, many of them are not sovereign, they became vassal states. So when they became vassal states, there was no need for they and their colonies and all of that. The United States got rid of it. And the United Nations came out of that. And one of the things about the United Nations is self-determination, right? So that was Europe was able to lose those colonies because as it was weak after World War II, as it became completely decimated after World War II, right? The anti-imperialist sentiment in Africa was growing. America capitalized on it. But they gave us a show because once colonialism ended, neo-colonialism kicked in. Neo-colonialism kicked in, and neo-colonialism has been what Africa has had for the since post World War II. So, because even when we were gaining, because back then, following the end of the Second World War, they were now beginning to structure the system of the new global order. And as those people sat down behind closed doors and they created that system of the new world order, when they created that system, Europe was already weak, and the sentiment was growing. The anti-imperialist sentiment was growing in Africa. So what did they do? They said, "Okay, independence, take this." So even before any African state had gained independence, like so-called independence, the new structure of neo-colonialism was already set up. So we came out of colonialism and fell into neo-colonialism. But this is the first time in centuries where it seems like sovereignty for Africa is at our grasp. If Togo is speaking like this, and the foreign minister of Togo is even telling us that within his society, I'm adding paraphrasing now, that within his society, the quest to get into the AES, if you ask them, they'll say yes, they want to because the AES is a symbol of anti-imperialism. That means the anti-imperialism sentiment in Africa is big. I thought it was just for we who follow geopolitics, but clearly no. If the statement of the foreign minister of Togo and the reception of Ibrahim Traore in Ghana during the inauguration of John Mahama is anything to go by, the anti-imperialist sentiment is deep. That's why I'm saying that I really, really think that if we will stay this course and create a very powerful structure and a very powerful system, we can win. The first time in centuries, Africa can really become sovereign. Africa can really become sovereign. Oh, I'm so excited about what the future would hold. It's not going to be easy. No, 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 it's not going to be easy. I told you the last time when we were speaking about France. I said no matter what you do, France is not going to leave Africa easily. The fact that they are saying they are going to reduce their military presence does not mean France is going to leave Africa. And I'm going to say that thing about imperialism in general. The fact that anti-imperialist sentiment is growing in Africa does not mean the imperialists will want to leave Africa. But if we stay the course and we create a plan, I'm saying this now, and we create a plan, we can win. Oh, we can win. And that future is indeed going to be very bright. So let me know what you think about this statement from the Foreign Minister of Togo. Let me know your comments in this. Let me let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Togo is open to joining the AES, the Alliance of the Sahel States. Share your thoughts with me in the comment section below. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to this channel, and share this video with those around you so that YouTube can get the hint that I'm doing a good job here, and that way YouTube will push these videos to more people for us to grow this channel. And also, we can all increase Africa's voice on the global scale. And if you want to support the work that I'm doing here, feel free to use the Buy Me a Coffee link in the description, and it's also on the screen. Thank you so much. Usually, I do 3 segments on the show. Very rarely, since I've been doing this show, I've done 4 segments just once. And today is going to be the second time. Because yesterday was the 17th of January, and it marked 64 years since the assassination of Patrice Lumumba of the Democratic Republic of Congo. Usually, I don't really talk about anniversaries of assassination because we have a lot to discuss, but I want to discuss Patrice Lumumba because of this statement I made in the last segment, and that is that the anti-imperialist sentiment is growing across Africa. While we're happy and we're excited about the turn of things in Africa and how, for the first time in centuries, Africa can really become sovereign, while we're excited about that, let's not forget Patrice Lumumba should be a reminder that the fight against imperialism is very dangerous and it can be fatal. They did not end 64 years ago when they assassinated him. It didn't end. For those of you who don't know, Patrice Lumumba was the first prime minister of the DRC, that Democratic Republic of Congo, and he was one of the freedom fighters who took their time, their lives, everything, dedicated themselves to the liberation of the African people from colonization. He was one of the people, those who are at the forefront of that, and he was a Pan-Africanist. Now, we found out after the declassification of certain CIA documents, we found out that the Americans, the British, and Belgium, they had been plotting his assassination even before the independence of the DRC. Because I believe that back then, the way it was around, though, when the Europeans were leaving, they left the country under the governance of puppets. So because of Lumumba's rhetoric during in the fight against colonization, they didn't want Belgium, Americans and the British, they didn't want to leave the DRC in his hand, because if they left it under his control, he was going to completely turn the country on a path they didn't want the country to go on. So they were plotting his assassination even before independence, but it didn't happen until after the independence of the DRC, so-called independence of the DRC. They hated him so much that this same CIA, the classified CIA documents showed that the then director of CIA said that Lumumba was worse than Castro. If you know Fidel Castro and the CIA, you know they hated they hated Castro. They tried to assassinate, they did everything to assassinate Castro of Cuba. They hated him. They did. But the CIA director of CIA once said that Lumumba, for him, in his opinion, was worse than Castro. Why? Because I'm guessing now, you cannot compare the resources that the DRC is sitting on to the resources that Cuba is sitting on. For them, losing the DRC was magnitude worse than anything Castro could have unleashed in Cuba. They used media to do assassination campaign against Lumumba. One of the things they did, they branded him a commie, a communist, because back then the whole craze in the world was, oh, communism is bad, communism, oh, the communists are coming, all of that. So they wanted to sell that pill to us. They had really done it to them in the United States. That's why several times, even when you follow US media, you still hear reference to communism because they had so demonized communism. I'm not saying communism is good or bad. That's not my business. That's not the discussion. But they had so propagandized the people with communism that they just used that same paint to paint it over Lumumba to make him, oh, look at him, he's a scary fellow. But who was Lumumba? Was he really scary? No, he wasn't. All he was saying was we should have independence in the DRC to decide a future. The same thing that is enshrined in the United Nations Charter that countries should have self governance. But self governance, I believe, so far has just been in mere words. If you look, when people really say, since we're talking about in the context of Africa, when we really say we really want self governance, they go out of their way to assassinate the leaders who are calling for real self governance, which is sovereignty. So all Lumumba was clamoring for was independence and full control of the resources of DRC to benefit the people of DRC. This is not a complicated stance. How is it that in Africa, the resources of Africa go on to benefit and make other people rich, except the Africans? People always ask, why do we have so much wealth in resources and people in Africa, but we still have such poverty? It's neocolonialism. That's the problem. So all Lumumba was saying was, let us use the resources of the DRC to take care of the people of the DRC, which is a noble stance because the resources of the United States are put into the same country. They're put into the same country. Norway was really, really poor, was like backwater poor. Norway in Europe was backwater poor. That many Norwegians they had to immigrate. Many of them left, they ran away from the country because it was poor, and many of them live in the United States. Many people of Norwegian descent relocated to the United States because of the poverty in Norway. But what turned Norway around? When Norway found its oil and gas reserves. That's it. They used the resources of Norway to benefit the people of Norway. So why is it that when it comes to using the resources of Africa to benefit the people of Africa, it's a controversial stance? Imperialism. That is your answer. Imperialism. So 64 years ago, the outsiders who were so happy to leave Africa in perpetual poverty and exploit the resources of Africa, they worked with insiders. Never forget that. In our fight against imperialism in Africa, do not forget that there will always be people in Africa, like anywhere in the world, who are going to work with outsiders to sabotage their country. Don't forget that. So, compromised individuals within the DRC worked with the CIA, the British intelligence, and Belgium and other nefarious players to bring down Lumumba. Lumumba, as well as two other of his associates, were arrested and they were killed at a firing squad. After killing Lumumba and his associates, they were chopped up, they were hacked in pieces and dissolved in sulfuric acid. It was bad enough that they killed him. They wanted to even in death, they wanted to ridicule him and the idea of anti-imperialism in Africa. Don't forget that. Don't forget that. It was not, if it was just about getting him out, they would have just killed him and looked away. But they wanted to send a warning to any other person within the continent who wanted to have far-fetched dreams of sovereignty and using your resources to benefit your country. So they shot them at the firing squad. They hacked them to pieces and they dissolved their body in sulfuric acid. Then Belgium took his teeth as souvenir. They took his teeth as souvenir. I need you to understand the brutality of imperialism. This fight that we are saying we are going on in Africa is not a small thing. Understand the brutality of imperialism. When it perceives a threat to itself, it would rear its fangs. Over the years, you've been seeing, I don't want to call names, but you've been seeing certain people posture and say human rights and all of those nice words. So many people will think, oh, they are really nice players. But look beyond the facade and look beyond the empty walls, scratch the surface, and they read their ugly fangs. They read their ugly fangs. Imperialism is not a nice game. It's not. It's not. Once they perceive something as a threat, that is when you see. Look at when they perceived Gaddafi as a threat. What did you see? The same people who will scream human rights, they used their media. They lied. They did character assassination against Gaddafi. They did everything and went in. In the one of the most inhumane and disastrous ways. They assassinated Gaddafi. And look at Libya today. What is going on in Libya? Is it human rights? Is it in accordance to the laws of human rights? Is it? The selling of slaves in open air slave markets in Libya. Does that look like human rights? Because they never cared about human rights to begin with. They never cared. In 2021, Belgium returned the teeth of Patrice Lumumba. When I saw that news, that I didn't know how to feel about it. I didn't know, is it the taking of the teeth or the returning of the teeth that is the insult? Do you understand me? Because why did you take the souvenir? Then what are we doing using the teeth to do? That was after 60, was it 60? Yeah, after 60 years. What are we using the teeth to do? But they returned it. They returned it. Today, after 64 years, the Democratic Republic of Congo is still poor. Today, after 64 years, the Democratic Republic of Congo is in an ongoing conflict that have ravaged the nation. Many times we talk about Sudan, and rightly so. But even as we are screaming about Sudan, there's fire burning in the DRC. But in the midst of this fire, corporations are going in to continue the exploitation of the country, collecting the resources. And it looks like the president doesn't have power to stop it. The leadership in the DRC, they don't have power to stop it. Rebel groups, armed rebel groups all over the place in DRC, causing chaos. Today, after 64 years, the exploitation of the DRC continued, as if it's trying to be a spit in the memory of Patrice Lumumba, that any idea of sovereignty for the DRC or for any African country, and any idea of using the DRC's resources to make the country rich, or even any African country, any of such ideas are doomed to failure. That is why after 64 years, the thing Lumumba was fighting against many decades ago are still happening till today. I'm not saying this to break your spirits. No. I'm saying this so that you know that the fight against imperialism is not a walk in the park. We have come out together to say we are going to we are going to start to fight for the liberation and the sovereignty of Africa by creating an African media movement focused on enlightening Africans on its geopolitical, economic interests. It's not going to be a walk in the park. The bigger we grow, the more formidable our voice becomes, the more attention we get, we are going to get backlash. The imperialists are not going to say, oh, Africa wants to be free and Africa wants to be sovereign, so let's allow them, and they'll walk away. They're not going to walk away. We are going to have to wrestle Africa out of their grip. We're going to have to wrestle Africa out of their grip. So when we are moving with Ukweli, this is our African media movement that I've said, let us get this done. Like in case you didn't know, I titled it Ukweli. Once we are moving with Ukweli, let us keep in mind that we are up against a very formidable foe. A very formidable foe. Because they would rather have Africa stay as just a place to collect raw materials, natural resources and go. Africa is not good enough for refining the resources in the country. That is why our crude oil is taken over there, refined there and sold back to us. And when Dangote said, let us set up a refinery here to refine our crude oil, fight. Till today, Dangote is still buying crude oil outside Nigeria. As we speak, Dangote is still buying crude oil from outside Nigeria. It's not an easy task. or we are going to win. Why are we going to win? Because you cannot keep a continent of billions of people under your thumb for so long, especially in such is a climate where information can spread quickly. I'm here in Nigeria recording, and once I publish this, you're watching me in Ghana, you're watching me in South Africa, you're watching me in the United States, you're watching me in the United Kingdom, you're watching me in Botswana, like this in an instance. When they gave us the show of um, independence and an end to colonialism in the 1950s and in the 1960s, we didn't have such fast spread of information. We didn't have it. So the information we got was the information that was filtered through their media. So they told us what they wanted us to know. But now we can give raw and unadulterated information for Africans to use and run. Take the information and run with it. That is why you could see a hero's welcome of Ibrahim Traore in Ghana. Interestingly, when Ibrahim Traore was in Ghana and we saw such a welcome of him, the BBC covered that story. And the headline of the BBC was gun-throttling leader, something like raises concern. If you did not see the video, you would have thought that the people who were there looked at Ibrahim Traore like, oh my God, why is he carrying a gun? Oh my God, this guy is like, is a rascal. He's not refined. He's not civilized. That's what you would have thought if you had read the BBC's coverage of that event. But thank God we all saw the event and we all saw the way people were clamoring and everybody was happy. They put a community note on that BBC's story because it was misleading. That's the point. Why did I say it? That is how, before now, where information can spread quickly, that is the way they filtered information to give to us. They told us what they wanted us to know. So, in our fight against imperialism, it's not going to be rosy, but we are going to win because the situation on ground favors us. The situation on ground, the way things are in Africa, favors us. So, maybe, just maybe, for the first time in 500 years, we are going to see the complete and absolute liberation and sovereignty of the African people. I'm excited about this future. I'm so excited about it. Let me know what you think about the legacy of Patrice Lumumba in the comment section below. Share your thoughts with me about even the future of Africa as we are seeing this rise in anti-imperialism sentiment across the continent. Share your thoughts with me in the comment section below. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to this channel, and share this video with everybody around you so that we can amplify Africa's voice and push the African narrative on the global scale. And remember that Ukweli is live. Yes, our African media movement is live. If you want to lend your voice to raising awareness for Africa and informing Africans of its geopolitical and economic interest in the multipolar world, join me on Ukweli by signing up in the comment section. The link is in the description below. Sign up with that link. I'm also going to leave it on the screen. And if you want to support the work that I'm doing here, feel free to use the Buy Me a Coffee link in the description, and it's also on the screen. Thank you so much for joining me in this episode of The Amanda Show. I had a great time, and I trust you had a great time too. I'll see you in the next episode. Take care. Bye-bye.